Audiobook title, Transform Middle-earth, written by Zephyr Audiobook Chapter 00. The crossing of worlds, prologue, the weight of metal and memory. The silence before battle always sounds like screaming to me. A shriek of frequencies that bypass audio receptors and pierce straight through to the spark. 37 feet above Cybertron's bleeding surface, I stand sentinel over a world that's forgotten how to breathe. The rust sea stretches endlessly before me, its crimson-stained waves lapping against the shores of corroded titanium and shattered dreams. Where metal giants once called this place home, now only their skeletal remains pierced through pools of corrupted energon that pulse like infected wounds. My long-range sensors paint the atmospheric readings in harsh amber overlays. 847 degrees Kelvin and climbing. Radiation levels that would cook lesser matches in nano-clicks. But the real heat that burns from somewhere much deeper, in the hollow spaces between my spark chamber and consciousness core. My designation is Optimus Prime, last of the Matrix bearers, and I am watching my world commit suicide one plasma blast at a time. The wind carries more than toxic particles tonight. It carries the electromagnetic ghosts of 4 million years worth of agony. Every fallen Autobot, every corrupted Decepticon, every civilian caught between ideologies they never asked to understand. The howling gale speaks in frequencies of loss, harmonics of betrayal, sub-audio whispers of, what if we'd chosen differently? My servos contract with hydraulic precision as another distant detonation paints the horizon in shades of molten copper and despair. The explosion's shockwave reaches me 7 seconds later, rattling through my superstructure like the death rattle of giants. The matrix of leadership responds to each tremor, its ancient crystal heart pulsing against my chest, plating in rhythm with Cybertron's slow, inevitable decay. Focusing my optics on the crystalline outcropping beneath my massive peds, I study how each facet reflects a different angle of our civilization's corpse. Twisted spires that once housed millions now lean against each other like drunken mourners. Energon pools turned toxic purple by warfare's bitter chemistry create mirror lakes that reflect nothing but shame. This is what becomes of ideals when they calcify into ideology, when philosophy hardens into fanaticism, when brothers become executioners. Ratchet, my voice cuts through the electromagnetic static like a fusion blade through neutronium, each syllable weighted with the gravitational authority I've carried for eons. The sound reverberates through my chest cavity, bouncing off internal armor plating like the toll of some massive mechanical bell. Status report, all frequencies. The communication array erupts in a symphony of interference, solar radiation creating diamond-bright static bursts. Weapons discharge painting sine waves across my audio spectrum, the high-frequency death screams of a planet in its final thermal convulsions. When Ratchet's voice finally breaks through the electronic chaos, it carries that gruff warmth of a friendship forged in the white-hot crucible of endless conflict. Prime, we've got massive movement near the Manganese Mountains. Seismic signatures indicate heavy mechanoid displacement patterns. I hear him pause, his diagnostic systems creating a background harmonic hum like mechanical breathing. Megatron's energy signature is burning at 127% of normal operational parameters, brighter than I've recorded in 12 stellar cycles. Whatever he's hunting in those peaks, he's committed his entire gladiatorial legion to securing it. Megatron, even processing his designation, sends micro-tremors cascading through my superstructure like sympathetic vibrations in a damaged crystal. Phantom pain from wounds that transcend the merely physical. Scars carved not just in titanium plating, but in the very architecture of memory itself. In the golden cycles before ideology poisoned our brotherhood like viral code, we labored side by side in Iacon's energon mines. Orion Pax and D16, our servos working in perfect synchronization, our sparks harmonizing with dreams of a Cybertron where function didn't determine destiny, where every mechanical soul could burn freely in its own chosen spectrum. The memory fractures like breaking crystal, shattered by the harsh blue glare of reality. Red optics filled with nothing but conquest. A voice that once spoke of liberation now preaching only domination. He's searching for something specific. Ratchet continues, his medical sensors layering biomechanical telemetry into the transmission like a diagnostic symphony. Preliminary scans suggest dimensional displacement technology. Whatever it is has him operating at stress levels that should trigger automatic shutdown protocols. Be careful out there, old friend. His spark signature indicates emotional volatility beyond normal Decepticon parameters. My fusion-powered fists clench with hydraulic precision, the sound echoing off the crystalline formations around me like the heartbeat of some enormous mechanical deity. Servos strain against internal pressure, until I hear the distinctive whine of systems approaching maximum tolerance. Alert Ultra Magnus to maintain defensive protocols around Ayakin's perimeter. Triple the sensor sweeps. If this proves to be diversionary tactics, already implemented, defensive matrix is at full operational capacity. Ratchet's voice softens, carrying harmonics of genuine concern that 4 million years of unending warfare haven't managed to corrode. And Optimus, remember what you told me about hope burning brighter than fear in the darkness between stars. Don't let that fire burn out, no matter what horrors you find in those mountains. The transmission dies in a burst of static, leaving me alone with Cybertron's mechanical lamentations and the crushing weight of decisions that will echo across multiple galaxies. My transformation begins with a deep rumble that starts in my spark chamber and spreads outward through every circuit and servo. Chest plates slide apart with hydraulic precision, each component singing in harmony as my consciousness expands to embrace my alternate configuration. Engine systems roar to life with the controlled fury of a contained star going nova. Fusion reactors cycling through ignition sequences that paint my internal displays in cascades of blue-white fire. The ground trembles beneath me as gravitational fields shift, and I prepare for the journey into whatever fresh hell awaits. The hunt begins racing through Cybertron's metallic corpse at maximum velocity, transforms time into something fluid. 7 hours compressed into moments that feel both eternal and impossibly brief. Every kilometer carries me deeper into a landscape that tells our species' story in twisted metal and bitter memory. Each landmark a testament to our capacity for magnificent self-destruction. My route carves through the skeletal remains of city-states that once pulsed with the life force of millions. Twisted spires of iridescent metal reach toward our wounded sky like the desperate fingers of buried titans, their surfaces scarred by plasma discharge and corroded by the acid rain of perpetual war. The architecture screams of interrupted dreams, quantum gardens left half-finished residential blocks whose inhabitants fled in the middle of ordinary cycles, never to return. Here lie Kaon's foundries, their blast furnaces cold for the first time in millennia, where Megatron first preached his seductive doctrine of might makes right to audiences drunk on the intoxicating promise of easy answers. The amphitheaters still bear scorch marks from his rallies, energon stains where peaceful protesters became martyrs to ideology. There, the radioactive crater that was once Voss, a city of aerial beauty obliterated by orbital bombardment when the Seekers chose their allegiance. Nothing remains but a glass-smooth depression that reflects Cybertron's crimson sky like a mirror made of melted dreams. The radiation signature still registers lethal levels after all these cycles. And beyond, the chemical-scarred ruins of Tarn, its towers leaning at impossible angles, still uninhabitable after exposure to weapons that turned the very air toxic. Ghost frequencies sometimes echo from its empty streets, the last transmissions of civilians who died calling for help that never came. All because we couldn't agree on how freedom should be defined. All because philosophy became theology, and theology became war. My optical sensors record each monument to futility with mechanical precision, storing them in memory banks already overcrowded with the digital ghosts of 4 million years worth of casualties. Each image burns into my consciousness like brands, reminders of what we've lost, what we've become. The familiar cacophony of battle reaches my audio receptors long before visual confirmation penetrates the electromagnetic fog of war. Plasma discharge creates purple-white tracers through the toxic atmosphere, each bolt trailing superheated ions that taste of ozone and desperation. The distinctive blue-white hum of Autobot pulse weaponry answers in harmonized bursts, creating a deadly symphony conducted by tactical algorithms and survival instinct. My long-range sensors paint the engagement in thermal overlays and trajectory analyses. The skirmish spreads across a valley carved between two crystallized energon peaks like an amphitheater, designed by madmen for gladiatorial death matches. I can hear my Autobots holding their positions with the desperate efficiency of veterans who have survived when others haven't. Jazz's engine purrs with deceptive calm as he weaves between cover, his electromagnetic signature dancing through sensor shadows with the grace of a performer who's made an art form of staying alive. Ironhide's heavy footsteps pound against crystalline substrate as he lays down suppressing fire, each impact crater speaking of weapons designed to end conversations permanently. Bumblebee's smaller but determined form creates rapid-fire audio pings as he darts through enemy lines, his youthful courage tempered by hard-earned tactical wisdom. But my attention locks immediately onto a sound that chills my energon to near-freezing temperatures. The deep, resonant footsteps of something massive striding through the carnage, like death incarnate wearing armor forged from nightmares. Each step registers as a seismic event, creating pressure waves that rattle loose debris and set harmonic frequencies singing through the crystalline formations. The sound carries undertones of absolute confidence, of a being so sure of its superiority that it moves through battle like a casual stroll through a scrapyard. Megatron's voice carries across the battlefield like the grinding of tectonic plates beneath a planet's crust, cultured malice wrapped in synthetic silk, intelligence turned to malevolent purpose. Even at this distance, every word reaches my audio receptors with crystal clarity, each syllable weighted with the gravity of absolute conviction. Seekers maintain perimeter integrity. The artifact must be secured at all costs. Any mech who allows it to escape will answer to me personally. Prime. Jazz's transmission cuts through the electromagnetic chaos like a blade through static, his saboteur's training evident in how he manages clear communication despite interference that would scramble most signals. Megatron's been ranting about dimensional breach technology for the past 3 breams, claims he'll harness it for the Decepticon cause, use it to reshape the fundamental parameters of our war. But the energy readings I'm detecting, Primus, help us. They are beyond anything in our databases, something that makes our most powerful weapons look like toys. Enemy fire forces Jazz deeper into cover. The sharp crack of superheated metal vaporizes rock, creating percussion that cuts off his report like a guillotine through sound waves. Time dilates as I transform mid-leap. Chronometer functions struggling to track the passage of nanoclicks that feel like stellar cycles. My truck configuration unfolds into bipedal form with the precision of origami performed by cosmic forces, each component sliding into place with hydraulic music that speaks of engineering perfection achieved through eons of refinement. The air rushes past my audio receptors as gravitational forces prepare to deliver me to the valley floor with the subtlety of a meteor strike. In this moment of suspended animation, everything crystallizes with perfect clarity. The harsh music of battle, the ozone scent of plasma discharge mixed with the metallic tang of vaporized armor, the electromagnetic pressure of destiny pressing down like the weight of collapsing stars. The impact sends seismic shockwaves through crystalline substrate, a declaration of intent that reverberates through both armies like the first note of some terrible symphony. Dust and debris fountain skyward in slow-motion geysers, while 37 feet of Autobot determination announces its arrival with all the subtlety of a solar flare. The battlefield falls silent for exactly 3 seconds, that peculiar quiet that comes when every combatant suddenly realizes the real war is about to begin, when the pawns step aside to make room for the kings. Optimus, Megatron's voice carries the accumulated weight of 4 million years of hatred distilled into liquid malice. I hear him turning from the battle with predatory grace, his massive frame rotating with the smooth precision of a weapon designed for killing. His fusion cannon whines as it swivels to track my movements, the sound building like the prelude to atomic fire. How delightfully predictable, still playing the noble hero to these pathetic creatures, I see. But you arrived too late, brother. I've discovered something that will make our little civil war seem like a training exercise for sparklings. My fusion cannon materializes with the distinctive harmonic whine of contained stellar fury, targeting systems acquiring lock with mechanical precision that turns geometry into destiny. Your war ends here, Megatron. Cybertron has suffered enough under your tyranny. These mountains will be your tomb. His laughter echoes across the valley like breaking crystal mixed with the death rattles of worlds, beautiful and terrible in its absolute certainty. Tyranny, I bring order to chaos, purpose to meaningless existence. Listen to our world's death rattle, Optimus. Every dying circuit sings of your weakness, your pathetic refusal to embrace what we could become together. I can hear something else beneath his words, something that makes my sensor arrays race with alarm signals. Energy readings, unlike anything in my 4 million year database, are emanating from somewhere behind his position. Frequencies that shouldn't exist, harmonic signatures that violate known physics like graffiti scrawled across the laws of reality. The very air hums with power that makes space-time itself seem flexible, reality bending around an impossible focal point, like light warping around a black hole's event horizon. Soon, Megatron continues, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carries perfectly across the electromagnetic chaos of battle. I'll command entire universes where organic life has flourished unchecked by our influence. Imagine the resources, Optimus. Imagine the infinite possibilities. Imagine the pure, untapped potential waiting to be harvested. The last dance, the battle that follows, transcends mere combat. It becomes a force of nature as two demigods of metal and accumulated fury tear at each other with the rage of dying galaxies. My energon axe materializes with a harmonic whine of contained power that makes nearby crystals ring like tuning forks. Whilst I hear Megatron's fusion, cannon reconfiguring into a massive blade, energy crackling along its edge like captured lightning, given form and malevolent purpose. We duel across the valley floor with the fury of binary stars locked in a gravitational death spiral. Our weapons carving through the air with lethal precision that turns physics into poetry written in violence. Each blow carries the accumulated weight of 4 million years of ideological divergence, and each parry echoes with the ghost of friendship, corrupted by the poison of absolute certainty. The sound of our combat shakes the very foundations of the crystalline peaks around us, servo joints straining against maximum load, creating harmonics that speak of engineering pushed beyond all reasonable limits. My audio receptors track every nuance of our deadly dance. Coolant systems cycling desperately to prevent critical overload, the distinctive electromagnetic signatures of weapons pushed beyond their design tolerances, the subsonic groaning of superstructures bearing loads they were never meant to endure. You could have ruled the galaxy beside me. Megatron snarls as our blades lock, the grinding of neutronium against neutronium creating sparks that shower around us like stars being born and dying in accelerated time. Coolant steam rises between us in silver clouds, carrying the scent of overheated systems pushed to their absolute breaking point. We could have brought perfect order to this chaotic universe together. Instead, you choose to coddle weakness to preserve failure. Our faces are mere inches apart, and in that moment, the entire history between us, friendship, betrayal, endless war, passes between our optics like data streams through quantum processors operating at light speed. I can see reflected in his burning red gaze the ghost of who he used to be, before ambition consumed everything noble in his spark. I chose compassion over conquest. I reply, servo motors straining as I force his weapon back with hydraulic determination that makes my entire frame sing with the effort. The sound of metal grinding against metal creates a frequency that resonates through both our superstructures. Strength without wisdom is mere brutality, Megatron, something you never understood, even when we shared the same dreams. With a surge of power that sends harmonic vibrations through my entire frame like the tolling of some massive bell, I break the deadlock. My axe carves deep into Megatron's chest armor, the impact reverberating through both our bodies with the finality of Judgment Day. Energon bleeds luminous blue from the wound, each drop hitting the ground with the weight of liquid starlight. But I can already hear his fusion cannon charging for another assault. That familiar whine of building power that speaks of annihilation measured in megatons, of destruction calibrated to erase mountains from existence. The beam catches me full in the torso, impact systems screaming warnings, as I crash through crystal formations that explode into prismatic fragments, each shard reflecting my pain in 1,000 different angles. Internal diagnostics flood my consciousness with damage reports written in urgent crimson text. Primary power coupling severed, left arm mobility reduced by 37%. Matrix housing integrity compromised to critical levels. Through my optical sensors, the world spins in a kaleidoscope of agony and sparking circuits, reality fracturing into component frequencies of pain. But as Megatron advances, his heavy footsteps creating seismic events that shake loose debris from the peaks above, my hand closes around a shard of crystallized energon pulsing with contained cosmic fire. Not enough to defeat him, never enough to match his raw power, but perhaps sufficient to prevent whatever dimensional catastrophe he's orchestrated among these cursed peaks. Any last words, brother? The question carries mockery wrapped around something that might once have been regret, buried so deep beneath layers of corruption that it's barely detectable even to my enhanced sensors. My voice carries the weight of absolute conviction, the authority of moral certainty that 4 million years of warfare couldn't diminish or corrupt. Yes, I meet his burning stare with steady resolve that has endured since the first day I took up the matrix of leadership. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. That truth will outlive us both. The Energon shard hurtles not toward Megatron, but toward the unstable dimensional breach behind him, its trajectory calculated with mathematical precision, born of desperation and hope. For a moment, time stretches like elastic reality, as both our faces register the implications of what I've done. The magnitude of forces I've just unleashed. The explosion illuminates Cybertron's wounded sky like the birth of a new star. Reality itself screaming as the dimensional tier widens beyond all possibility of control. Space-time folds with the sound of cosmic origami performed by mad gods, and I feel myself lifted by forces that exist in the spaces between dimensions, between thought and dream. The last thing I hear is Megatron's roar of fury, Dopplering away into infinite possibility, his voice scattered across probability matrices I cannot comprehend. Between worlds when consciousness returns after exactly 97 hours of forced shutdown, the battlefield lies silent except for the settling of cooling metal and the whispered prayers of dying crystals. My self-repair protocols have restored minimal function, though extensive damage remains cascading through my systems like echoes of trauma. Megatron has vanished, destroyed, scattered across the multiverse, or transported to realms beyond my comprehension. Even my most sophisticated sensors cannot determine which fate claimed him. But as I struggle toward Iacon's distant spires, using a crystalline outcropping for support, at the same time, diagnostic warnings paint my visual field in urgent amber. Reality begins fracturing around me once more with the persistence of some cosmic wound that refuses to heal. The portal manifests with a sound like silk being torn by claws made of pure mathematics, 12 feet in diameter, and defying every principle in my physics database with casual contempt. Its surface ripples with the consistency of liquid mercury infused with liquid starlight, whilst depths beyond contain harmonics that speak of cosmic birth and death, of universes being born and dying in accelerated cycles. Through its translucent barrier, I glimpse something that challenges 4 million years of accumulated knowledge, organic growth reaching toward unfamiliar suns, the musical sound of water flowing over stone shaped by time rather than industry atmospheric pressure readings that suggest skies burning with constellations I've never cataloged. My sensors struggle to process readings that redefine possibility itself. Stone walls warmed by actual flame create acoustic patterns unlike anything in my vast experience. Surfaces that speak of individual craftsmanship rather than mass production, of hands that shaped each stone with patience and purpose. Wooden beams sing with the memory of wind through leaves, their grain telling stories of seasons and growth and life triumphant over entropy. And most impossibly, I detect the harmonic signature of growing things in magnificent profusion. Life asserting itself without industrial support. Organic existence that has shaped reality instead of being shaped by it. But it's the voices that capture my attention completely. Not mechanical, not filtered through vocalizers or communication arrays, but something altogether different. Organic beings discussing danger, protection, hope, with tones that carry warmth I'd forgotten could exist in any universe. Don't much like the look of him, Mr. Frodo. Rangers are secretive folk, they are, and they've got their ways about things that make my skin crawl. We must reach Rivendell before the moon wanes to nothing, or all our efforts will be worth less than yesterday's pipe smoke. Sam's right to be cautious, of course, but I sense no evil in this Strider. Indeed, I begin to believe he may be the salvation we never dared hope for. My consciousness reels as probability calculations cascade through processing centers never designed for this kind of analysis. These beings face mortal danger, their very existence threatened by forces beyond their control. Yet their voices carry hope and determination that 4 million years of unending warfare nearly made me forget was possible in any reality. The matrix within my chest grows warm, its ancient crystal heart recognizing something kindred across impossible dimensional barriers. A principle I've carried since first accepting the burden of leadership resonates through my spark, like a bell tolling across the architecture of time itself. All sentient life is precious. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, regardless of species, origin, or the reality they happen to inhabit. Ratchet, I activate my communication array, knowing quantum interference may prevent transmission across dimensional boundaries, but compelled to try nonetheless. I'm investigating a spatial anomaly approximately 2 kilometers from Ayakin's perimeter. If I fail to report within 12 hours, transfer tactical command to Ultra Magnus and tell him. I pause, searching for words that will convey the magnitude of what I'm about to attempt. Tell him that duty sometimes requires us to protect more than we ever imagined possible. Tell him that hope exists in places we never dreamed of looking. Static answers, the harsh white noise of complete communications isolation. I am truly alone, standing on the threshold between realities with only conscience as my guide, and the Matrix's warm pulse as my compass. All my existence, I murmur to the howling wind that carries the bitter scent of Cybertron's slow death. I've fought to protect the innocent. If they exist beyond this barrier, they deserve that protection as much as any Autobot, as much as any Cybertronian, as much as any being I've ever sworn to defend. Before my logical circuits can catalog the 1,000 tactical reasons this decision violates every principle of sound military judgment, I step forward into swirling chaos that tastes of infinite possibility. The journey through infinite the moment my massive PED touches the portal's event horizon. Existence ceases to have meaning in any comprehensible way. Colors that have no names in any language cascade through dimensions that exist in spaces between quantum states and probability waves. My form stretches across realities I cannot fathom, time becoming a river that flows in all directions simultaneously, whilst carrying the dreams and nightmares of countless civilizations. I experience fragments from my past mixed with visions of potential futures in a kaleidoscope of possibility. Cybertron's golden age bleeding into glimpses of worlds where organic life has flourished for millions of years without metal feet to tread their soil. Images of our war spiral together with visions of peace, of Megatron's corruption dancing with memories of our friendship, all compressed into moments that last forever and no time at all. Through the chaos, the Matrix serves as my anchor, its power keeping my spark cohesive, whilst lesser beings would scatter across infinite probability like light through a prism. The artifact sings with harmonies that predate Cybertron's birth, resonating with forces that govern reality's fundamental architecture. The cosmic source code that writes the laws of physics across multiple universes. Its light pulses within my chest, pushing back against dimensional darkness that threatens to dissolve identity itself into component quantum states. You are needed, a voice whispers through the storm of creation and destruction. Not Primus, but something older, something that has watched over the birth and death of galaxies since the first stars ignited in the cosmic dawn. The shadow grows strong in that realm, and hope grows dim as candles in the wind. Be their guardian, Optimus Prime. Be their light in the darkness that devours worlds. My consciousness touches something vast and benevolent, a presence that feels like coming home after centuries of wandering through the cold void between stars. The being speaks without words, communicating in harmonics of pure meaning that bypass language entirely. The transit feels like microseconds compressed into millennia, existence folded into a single moment of infinite possibility, where every choice ever made echoes across the quantum foam of reality itself. Then, with a displacement of air that shakes ancient stone and sends metallic objects rattling like wind chimes in a cosmic storm, I materialize in a world where organic life has shaped reality, instead of being shaped by the cold mathematics of industry. First contact protocol, the sensory assault overwhelms every system simultaneously, flooding my consciousness with information it was never designed to process, data streams that redefine the very concept of existence. My olfactory sensors, calibrated for detecting trace gases and energy signatures across the electromagnetic spectrum, drown in a symphony of organic complexity that speaks of life triumphant. Wood smoke carries the genetic memory of forests that grew for centuries without interference, their essence condensed into aromatic molecules that tell stories of seasons and growth. Leather cured with techniques that predate space travel by millennia creates scent profiles my databases cannot categorize. The patient work of hands that shaped hide into something beautiful and functional through skill passed down through generations. The green fragrance of growing things overwhelms processors designed for sterile environments, speaking of chlorophyll and photosynthesis, and the patient alchemy by which sunlight becomes life itself. I find myself crouched awkwardly in what appears to be a standard room designed by beings who understand comfort rather than efficiency, my massive frame making the low-ceilinged space feel impossibly confined, yet somehow welcoming. Fire crackles in a stone hearth with the chaotic beauty of combustion, uncontrolled by regulation systems, radiating actual warmth, not the calculated output of thermal regulators or the harsh glare of plasma conduits, but something primal that speaks to needs I didn't know existed in my mechanical soul. Frozen by my sudden appearance, like statues carved from living flesh, are the owners of voices I heard through the dimensional barrier. The small beings barely reach my knee servos in height, their organic forms speaking of evolution rather than engineering. But it's their eyes that capture my attention with laser focus. Intelligence burns there like stars in miniature, and something I recognize despite its utterly alien nature. The quiet determination of those who will walk into darkness if duty demands it, who understand that some things are worth any sacrifice. The tallest among them, not the same species as the others, his frame speaking of different evolutionary pressures, different worlds, positions himself protectively before the smaller beings with the fluid grace of someone born to command. His hand rests on a weapons-worn hilt with professional competence that speaks of experience earned through blood and necessity. Despite our size difference that renders the comparison almost absurd, his stance suggests he would challenge me without hesitation if I threatened his companions. My respect subroutines engage automatically, recognizing something universal that transcends species barriers. This one understands duty in the same way I do, as a weight that shapes every decision, every moment, every breath. For a moment stretching into eternity, we stare at each other across firelight's warm glow that paints everything in shades of amber and gold. My systems continue their relentless analysis. Atmospheric composition suitable for carbon-based life, gravity approximately 1. 2 Cybertronian standard, no immediate threats detected by any sensor array. But my consciousness focuses entirely on the complex mixture of emotions I read in those impossibly expressive organic faces. Fear indeed, and who could blame them? My sudden appearance would terrify anyone not accustomed to beings of my stature, especially beings who measure their height in units smaller than my fingers. But also curiosity burning bright in the younger faces, particularly from the smallest ones whose eyes hold wonder instead of terror. And something else that makes my spark warm with recognition deeper than programming, hope flickering like a candle flame in darkness, as if my arrival might represent aid in their darkest hour rather than simply another threat to face. The small being with the heaviest burden slowly rises from his seat, movement speaking of exhaustion carried with dignity, of strength that runs deeper than physical capability. Despite diminutive stature and apparent weariness that shows in every line of his compact form, something in his bearing reminds me powerfully of matrix bearers of old, those chosen few who carry their people's hopes like sacred flames that must never be allowed to die. Lar, are you one of them? His voice carries steady courage despite apparent fear, each word weighted with the gravity of someone who has seen too much darkness, who has stared into the abyss and somehow retained his sanity. One of the Dark Lord's servants, some new weapon he's devised to hunt us across all the leagues of Middle-earth. I modulate my vocal systems for this new acoustic environment, filtering each word through diplomatic protocols designed for first contact with unknown species, adjusting frequency and amplitude to avoid shattering these delicate organic auditory organs. I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. My voice rumbles with gentle authority that somehow avoids shaking the ancient timbers overhead, each syllable carrying the weight of command earned through eons of impossible decisions. But also something softer, the promise of protection, the oath of a guardian sworn to defend those who cannot protect themselves. I mean you no harm. I have traveled from very far away indeed, and my sensors detect that you face great danger. The room holds its breath as organic and mechanical consciousnesses measure each other across an impossible gulf of species, evolution, and reality itself. The recognition of heroes, what follows, challenges every assumption in my tactical databases, redefining my understanding of courage, sacrifice, and the infinite varieties that heroism can take. These beings, hobbits, they call themselves with evident pride, along with the human ranger whose bearing speaks of nobility earned rather than inherited, face impossible odds against something called the Dark Lord of Mordor with the kind of resigned determination that reshapes the very definition of bravery. They carry an artifact of such corrupting power that merely possessing it marks them for death, hunted by beings whose very existence speaks of corruption beyond redemption. Yet they press forward with their mission to destroy this thing at the cost of their own lives. The One Ring, the bearer whispers, and though I lack context for the words, my sensors detect how every being in the room tenses at their mention, as if the very syllables carry physical weight. The air itself seems to thicken with dread, molecules rearranging themselves in patterns that speak of fundamental wrongness. Forged by Sauron to control all other rings of power, to dominate every free will in Middle-earth until nothing remains but slavery wrapped in golden chains. His voice carries the weight of absolute conviction mixed with bone-deep exhaustion, the tone of someone who has accepted a burden that will almost certainly destroy him, but cannot conceive of laying it down. As they explain their situation, hunted by creatures called Nazgul whose very presence corrupts the air they breathe, marked for death by darkness itself, carrying hope's last ember towards certain destruction in the fires of Mount Doom. My consciousness reels with recognition that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the spark. Here, in this impossible place among beings I'd never imagined could exist, I've found something achingly familiar. Heroes undertaking an impossible mission, carrying hope against overwhelming darkness, fighting to protect all life from tyranny with nothing but courage, and the conviction that some things are worth any sacrifice. My optical sensors focus on each face in turn, reading the story written in their expressions with sensors designed to analyze tactical situations, but finding themselves cataloging something far more critical: fear and determination dancing together in perfect balance, despair and hope walking hand in hand on the knife's edge of absolute commitment. Just like us, just like every Autobot who has ever chosen to stand against the dark, to hold the line when retreat would be easier, to protect those who cannot defend themselves. But their war is against something far older and more fundamentally evil than even Megatron's twisted ambition. The tactical analysis scrolls through my consciousness like a death sentence written in probability mathematics. Their chances of success approach statistical zero. 4 small hobbits whose combined height barely equals my forearm. 1 human ranger marked by hardship and desperate purpose, all carrying the weight of an entire world's hope on shoulders that seem impossibly fragile. Against them stands a dark lord whose power has grown unchecked for millennia, commanding armies of orcs and trolls that number in the hundreds of thousands. 9 corrupted kings riding winged terrors that blot out the sun. Powers that have terrorized this world since before these beings' ancestors learned to walk upright. And yet, looking at the ring-bearer's quiet determination, at his gardener's unwavering loyalty that shines like a beacon, at the ranger's protective stance that speaks of oaths sworn in blood and honor, I feel something spark within my spark. The same recognition I felt when first accepting the matrix of leadership. These are not mere mortals facing impossible odds with nothing but hope to sustain them. These are heroes in the truest sense. They know the cost, understand the odds with mathematical precision, and still choose to stand against darkness because the alternative is unthinkable. The moment of truth when the ranger, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir to a throne he has not claimed, challenges my intentions, positioning himself between his companions and my massive form with the fluid grace of someone born to command. I understand his action completely. Here stands someone who places others' safety above his own, with the instinctive certainty of natural law, who would face any threat to protect the innocent regardless of personal cost. The gesture speaks louder than any words. Duty before self, protection before survival, honor before ease. You speak like a soldier, he says, gray eyes analyzing every detail of my appearance with the practiced assessment of someone who has learned that survival often depends on reading threats correctly the first time. One who has commanded others in desperate wars, who has carried responsibility for lives beyond your own. But this is not your world, not your people, not your war. Why would you risk yourself for strangers you've known for mere moments? My response carries the accumulated weight of 4 million years of warfare and loss, each word chosen with the precision of a surgeon's blade, filtered through the hard-earned wisdom of countless battles fought for principles rather than territory. Because I have seen what happens when good beings do nothing, whilst evil spreads unchecked across the stars. I have watched worlds burn because those with the power to intervene chose to protect only their kind, only their interests. My voice drops to a whisper that somehow fills the room with the resonance of absolute conviction. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, not just those who happen to share my species, my origin, or the reality I was forged in. Evil is evil, regardless of the universe it inhabits. Recognition flickers in the ranger's weathered face like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, the dawn of understanding that transcends species barriers, and speaks to something universal like leadership and sacrifice. You speak as one who has carried great responsibility for the lives of others. A war that has raged for 4 million years. I reply quietly, letting the incomprehensible magnitude of that time frame settle over them like snow falling on a graveyard. Between those who believe in freedom and those who would impose their will upon all life through force and terror. My brother, once my dearest friend and closest ally, believes that strength gives him the right to rule, that lesser beings exist only to serve the powerful, that freedom is a weakness to be eliminated. My optics dim slightly with the weight of memory, cycling through visual spectra as if seeking wavelengths that might reveal answers to questions I've carried for eons. I believe every thinking creature has the right to choose its destiny, to live free from tyranny, to face tomorrow with hope instead of fear. That principle is worth defending, regardless of the cost. The gardener, Sam Gamgee, whose name speaks of earth and growing things, studies me with deep suspicion that gradually transforms into grudging respect, his weathered hands speaking of honest work and simple wisdom. That's why you'll help us, he says with the kind of simple clarity that cuts through complexity like a sword through silk. Because you can't do anything else, can you? Can't stand by and watch while darkness swallows everything decent in the world. Very perceptive, I reply, and if my face could express such things, I might have smiled at his straightforward wisdom. I am what I am because of the choices I've made, the oaths I've sworn, the principles I've accepted as immutable laws, and I choose to stand with those who fight for freedom, however impossible the odds might seem, however distant the hope of victory. The alliance forms as dawn light creeps through wooden shutters like liquid gold, illuminating this organic world in shades of color no transformer has ever imagined. Emerald greens that speak of life triumphant, azure blues that promise peace, amber warmth that whispers of sanctuary. I make my declaration with the finality of gravity itself. Then you shall not face this darkness alone. The silence that follows speaks volumes beyond any words, carrying the weight of destiny reshaping itself around an alliance that defies every law of probability, every principle of tactical logic. The quantum mechanics of fate itself seem to shift and realign around this moment, reality adjusting to accommodate possibilities that should not exist. Here, in this standard room of an inn called the Prancing Pony, a name that speaks of simple pleasures and honest hospitality. Heroes from two realities separated by dimensional barriers that might as well be infinite share the warmth of fire and fellowship, whilst darkness gathers strength for trials that will test the very foundations of existence. The portal that brought me here has collapsed, its energies dispersed across dimensional barriers like ripples from a stone dropped in an infinite pond. Whatever cosmic forces drew me to this place, whatever convergence of need and possibility made this meeting inevitable, there will be no easy return to Cybertron's familiar battlefields. But watching sunrise paint this world in colors I'd never imagined, listening to the gentle sounds of organic life, beginning another day with hope instead of despair, I find I don't regret the journey that brought me here. Megatron will have to wait for our subsequent encounter. This Middle-earth, these people who face darkness with nothing but courage and conviction, require me now. And Optimus Prime has never turned away from those in need, never abandoned the innocent to face evil alone. The war for Middle-earth has gained an unexpected champion, whose very existence defies the boundaries between realities, whilst the eternal conflict between Autobots and Decepticons prepares to spill across dimensions in ways that will reshape both universes forever. The crossing of worlds has begun, and with it, the greatest alliance in the history of two realities, the largest guardian imaginable standing beside the smallest heroes who have ever walked beneath stars. But that is a tale for another chapter, when the Fellowship will be tested by forces beyond imagination, when hope itself hangs by the thread of an unlikely friendship between beings who measure their existence in different scales entirely, and when the fires of Mount Doom will witness more than just the destruction of a ring. For now, crouched in this warm sanctuary with my new allies, breathing air that tastes of hope instead of defeat, I begin to understand that actual size isn't measured in feet and tons, but in the courage to stand against the dark when all seems lost. And these hobbits, tiny as they are in physical stature, cast shadows that giants would envy, shadows that stretch across multiple realities to touch the sparks of beings they'll never meet, but whose lives they're fighting to protect. The transformation of two worlds has begun. In the fires of Mount Doom, more than just a ring will be forged into legend that will echo across the cosmos until the last star burns cold, till all are one.